What's going on, beautiful people? Welcome back to Game Day Grace, the podcast where sports and faith unite in powerful conversations. David Schiele, Cory, Mose with you right here as always on the Believer's Bench. But joining us today on the bench is a good friend of ours, Fitz. Well, we call him Fitz, but he goes by officially Jamarcus Fitzpatrick. That's what his mama named him. So I guess that's what we're going to call him today. Fitz, what's going on, my boy?
It's all good, brother, man. I'm a huge fan of what y'all are doing here on this show, man. So I'm glad y'all can have me on today.
Oh, yeah, most definitely, most definitely. So today we're going to be talking about NFL free agency and how that kind of ties into what we do, not just on the job side, but just on the personal side, because sometimes we are free agents, not just in sports broadcasting, but, you know, outside of the business as well. We can be free agents in all kind of different areas. So we're going to kind of wrap all that together, right? Sports and faith really uniting in a conversation here. So we're going to start it off. NFL free agency begins today. We know legal tampering began a couple days ago on Monday. Teams making signings everywhere. Have y'all been impressed by any of the moves your favorite teams have made? Have y'all been disappointed? What y'all feeling right now?
Yeah, I mean, for the Texans, shout out H-Town, hold it down. I like it. I know a lot of people are kind of skeptical about trading Laramie Tunsil and all that stuff, but, you know, he led the league in penalties last year when it comes to that, and the offensive line was atrocious. So why not rebuild it? And that's why I don't understand the backlash, because it's like everyone complained about the offensive line. So now the Texans are getting rid of offensive linemen, and they're like, what are you doing? But it's like, you can't have the best of both worlds. So I think I like the move for Laramie, getting all those draft picks. Like the move yesterday for sure with Kenyon Green and then getting C.J. Gardner-Johnson back there. They got a bunch of knuckleheads in the secondary now. So that's going to be very interesting. But for the Texans, I mean, I like the moves for sure.
Yeah, man, I'm looking at a team like the Commanders. They got Deebo Samuel. I mean, you talking about an electrifying playmaker. You already got Terry McLaurin over there. You add him into the mix where it takes more pressure off of Jaden Daniels, where if he can line up in the backfield, he can split out wide, you can toss him the ball on a jet sweep, he can make a lot of action happen. And so I think that's just going to continue to make them dangerous. You know, they have a lot of cap room to work with because Jaden Daniels is still on their rookie contract, so they're going to be able to continue to build pieces around him. The main thing now is to be able to capitalize on it. You get to the NFC Championship. Now can you get to the big one, and then can you win it all? That's what it's going to come down to. And really, we got to see which Deebo Samuels we're going to get, because when all the pieces are working and everything's going good for him, he's one of the best to do it. But if not, it's kind of a toss-up in the air. So we'll see how he meshes with the Commanders' offense and how that works for them.
Yeah, and I don't know what the heck the Falcons doing. So that's per usual.
Leonard Floyd.
Yeah, Leonard Floyd. Hey, man, shout out to the UGA talent finally coming home. It feels like the Falcons will only get the elite UGA talent when they're too late in their careers. Like, it's like, bro, you should have been had him. You know what I'm saying? Like, when they had Todd Gurley, I'm like, bro, you bringing Todd Gurley in now? You know what I mean? Like, that's just weird. Like, bringing in all this UGA talent way too late. Might as well have Matthew Stafford. You know what I'm saying? Like, you just draft the dudes out of college. They right down the street. I've never understood the whole idea of, like, they right there. You get to see them in your house, by the way, because they're always in the SEC championship. And y'all like, we good, man. We don't need Jalen Carter. Like, what? Like, now we good, bro. We don't need none of that, bro. So, yeah, I don't get that. But I tell you this, though. You do add a pass rusher in Leonard Floyd who was healthy, who has been healthy. That dude has not missed games. So he's always out there. He's got, I think, at least 8 sacks in the last 5 years. Now, he might have benefited because Bosa was on the other side, and that, you know, that helped him eat a little bit. But at the same time, that does mean at least he's getting to the quarterback. You still have to be able to get to the quarterback. Just because an elite pass rusher is on the other side doesn't mean you, as the other dude, you know, are automatically going to eat. So that says something about that. And, hey, I don't know what they're going to do with Kirk Cousins' contract. I know there's, you know, a rumor right now about trying to get him to the Browns. Maybe the Browns pay half of that money, and the Falcons just got to be responsible for the other half. I don't know. I have no idea. But at the same time, why y'all sign him in the first place? So, yeah, it's just it's a little bit weird. Now, as for the Buccaneers, the team I actually cover, they've done a fantastic job. They extended their guard who came in and really shored up that offensive line. They brought back Chris Godwin, so you're going to have him and Mike Evans one more time. And so you just look at what they've been able to do the last couple of years, bringing everybody back. They got Baker back, and they extended Tristan Wirfs, who's an all-pro. They extended all-pro safety Antoine Winfield Jr. Like, they're giving all these people their money, and people are not choosing to leave. Like, unless you're trash, you're probably going to come back because that's just a well-run organization. So they've done a very good job.
No doubt, man. I mean, you even look at a team like the Steelers getting DK Metcalf. You talking about
Do you like that move?
Hey man, if you talking about having some grit and toughness to you, DK and George Pickens, I feel very sorry for whatever cornerbacks are gonna be running down the field when I'm on a run because they're gonna block you. You block, that's for sure. The main thing is if they get a quarterback, I know they've been making a punch at Rodgers, and I think Bleacher Report is saying that it's between Pittsburgh and the Giants. But Russell Wilson could be the backup plan. I don't know, man. I mean, those guys are young. They want the football. They got some stuff to them. So if you're not feeding them, they're going to let you know it. So it's going to be a matter of if they can get the right guy in there that can get both of them their touches. If they can, watch out, man, because they can be explosive.
It just feels like Jackson Dart is just the guy for that team. I don't know why, but, I just feel like later in the draft, second round, if he falls that far, he's a deep ball thrower. That's all he did at Ole Miss. And so why not pair him with DK and George Pickens, deep balls down the field? Like, it just makes a lot of sense to maybe get a Rodgers, but just for 1 year to help get Jackson Dart prepared, or even Russ. Like, just give him a little 1 year deal. All right, help us get Jackson Dart ready. Because I just feel like with those two weapons, down the field throwing is what the Steelers need. And so I feel like Jackson Dart was the best in this class down the field, maybe him or Cam Ward. But I don't know. It just feels like Dart is just a Steeler to me. But, Fitz, you mentioned quarterbacks on the rookie contracts, being able to utilize that with Washington. I like what Chicago did a lot. I think they may have won free agency, just being able to get all the offensive linemen, Jonah Jackson, Joe Tooney, the center from Atlanta. My apologies, David. But
they weren't going to pay him no way.
But, being able to Ben Johnson, right? You can tell that they're going about it the right way now that he's at the helm. Last year, everyone talked about the flashiness of the receiver signings, but they couldn't block. And Ben Johnson looked at that as like, okay, Ben, we created our culture in Detroit with the offensive line. So let's get that shirt up. And now it's like, all right, Caleb, you got your boys up front. Let's see if the sacks last year were on you or is on the offensive line. Because now you got really good pass protectors. So if he's still back there holding the ball and getting sacked, there's going to be some conversation at the end of the season. So they're giving everything for Caleb to be successful. Now it's like, can Caleb bring this team to the next level?
Absolutely. And they took Grady Jarrett from Atlanta.
Yeah,
so
bro.
He's going to be on the defensive side. Yeah, man. Dude had 3 sacks in the Super Bowl on Tom Brady. So, that's a dude who got a little bit of a motor, bro. And he's been in the league for a minute, too.
Yeah.
Like, he just still productive. So, the Bears should be much improved going into this season. I mean, you get Ben Johnson, which is crazy. You took him from your rival. You get Ben Johnson, you get the offensive line, like, should be a much improved team. I'm going to use that as a transition piece because we're talking about old faces going to new places, right? Like Debo and Reddick, who has moved around a couple of times. We just started talking about Grady Jarrett there at the end. We've also been old faces in new places ourselves. I know for me, I was in Knoxville, Tennessee, coming out of Georgia State and Atlanta. Now I'm here in Tampa. Fitz, what has been your journey for the people that do not know?
Yeah, man. So I went to school at Louisiana College in Pineville, Louisiana, which is right there adjacent to Alexandria. And then after internship, that turned into being a producer. So I started actually on the news side, building weekend newscasts and things like that. And then I eventually transitioned over into being a sports director, where I was there for, I think, 2.5 years officially. And it was an interesting time because, the back half of 2019, LSU football goes on an amazing run. And I'm like, man, this is finna be great. And then the world shuts down in 2020. We go through a whole pandemic and then we come back to normal there in 21 and then my contract is up. So when it came to like trying to figure out how life was, especially fresh out of college, it was rough. I ain't gonna lie, man, because you go from, you know, being in a dorm room and you kind of have a little bit of structure of what you want to do to, hey, you're a full-time adult, you got to pay rent, you got to make sure you got groceries in the house, and then the world shuts down and you're trying to figure all that stuff out. It makes it kind of tough on a young person. So, and then you move over from there, my contract ends and I decided I want to move forward, and I, moved to Lafayette, Louisiana, where I am now. And I've been here for 4 years in a place that, I really enjoy being at. And it's given me a lot of joy in being here. I got married in the time that I've been here. So it's been good for me, man. Just a lot of, decisions that I've had to make along the way, that as you go, you learn what you're supposed to be doing as God kind of presents it to you.
How far away is Alexandria from Lafayette?
It's only an hour. That's a good thing. So, the move for me was also something that was kind of personal, because at the time my dad was passing away. And so I didn't want to like move too far. So I had a couple of options on the table, but I had to turn some of them down because I was like, man, at any given moment, I might have to go back to the crib, take care of things with my family and all that stuff like that. And so, this opportunity here kind of came out of nowhere. Honestly, I was, at my old station, and, one of my buddies, Seth Lewis, shout out to him. He was the sports director there at KATC. He's now in New Orleans. And he gave me a call and he was just asking me what I was doing. He asked me if I had any job opportunities, and I was just like, before you give them an answer, check back here. And so I didn't realize that was a interview that he was giving to me at the time. So, he told me to apply for the job. I applied. I'm on the call with a recruiter. Week later or so, I had an offer on the table, and it was just so seamless, because for me, like, I wasn't looking at this place as an opportunity. It was always something that I looked at from a distance and be like, Lafayette is cool, but I never thought that I would be here. And God just always sometimes gives you that ram in the bush, bro. Like, you never know when you need something or when it's the right time for it to be there for you. But he made sure that I had that, and it was perfect for me.
Yeah, how tough was it to discern not taking those opportunities to stay closer to your family?
Yeah, man, it's tough, because as we know, like, bro, you apply for a gig, you might not hear nothing. It might be crickets. You know what I'm saying? And you're sitting there and you start getting into the questioning of, am I good enough? Am I ready? Do I need to resign? And that can put a lot of stress and anxiety on your shoulders. But the main thing that, I realized is, when I pray about the situation, is I just try to get real specific with God. I remember when I was still on the producer contract, when I was in Alexandria, one of my buddies that works in San Antonio gave me a call, and he was like, hey, I know you just graduated, but do you want to come work up here? And I was like, yeah, that'd be cool. I got a sister that stays out there, and, that's the top 50 market. Let's do it. So I remember I prayed and I asked God, I said, God, I know that I don't have a sports reporter contract right now. I said, but if you want me to stay here, let my news director come in and give me a contract early. And I guarantee you, bro, like 2-3 days later, he walked in and said, hey, I know you're a producer now, but we know what the transition is going to be like. Let's go ahead and get this paperwork signed. So from there, I'm like, all right, God, if we going to be like that, I got to pray with you. Like, all right, if I can't go here, don't let them call me at all. And it always happens like that, man. So me and God really have a interesting relationship, because he knows if I get any inkling of like, oh, they might want me, like, now I start thinking, like, I'll start watching people's whole newscast and trying to figure out, like, how can I position myself here? So he knows that if it's not the place for me, it's not even gonna happen at all,
Cory, what was your journey like in terms of moving around kind of like that? Because I know there was a couple of jobs on the table when you were in West Texas. I might have made that up.
No, you're right. No,
yeah,
you're
you was in
on.
West Texas before you was in Austin. So what was that journey like in terms of your quote unquote free agency?
Yeah, I was in Midland, Odessa to be exact. Home of Mojo, Permanent Panthers, shout out. But yeah, I mean that situation was kind of weird, because I've always been content in my job searches. Like, I tell people this all the time. God has opened up doors and opportunities that I haven't even like applied for. When I got the job in Midland, I didn't apply for the job. When I got the job here in Austin, I didn't apply for the job. It just so happened to just fall in my lap that way. And so, like for this situation, funny enough, I don't know if I said this like on like camera before, but so a year into Midland, I did actually get offered the job here at KView, the Austin position. By that time, I was a weekend guy in Midland, Odessa. I wasn't getting a lot of reps on the desk just because, on the weekends, you only get 2 days and compared to 5. And when they reached out, my partner at the time, Elioff, he was about to leave. And so it was a transition period for us at the station where I was about to become number one Monday through Friday. And I had a conversation with my news director about, what part of my game do I need to improve on? And she was like, look, you need to get more reps on the desk. You need to get more reps in the studio. You're good, but you just still need to get more polishing there to take that next step. And so a guy like me, like I want to be well-rounded and I want to be well prepared for the next opportunity. And so Austin hit me up after one of my videos went viral. Y'all remember that beard stand up I did?
Oh, everybody remembers that.
Yeah.
Everybody knows. Everybody knows that one.
Yeah. So after that one, the news director in Austin DM'd me and was like, "What's your contract looking like?" So we went through a whole process, interviewed, talked to the GM, but also during that time, outside of work, I just joined a church, True Light, and I started to get involved with the youth ministry there. Started to teach in the youth ministry. And I was just now getting my footing and getting a good relationship with some of the high school athletes that went to my church that I then covered, out and about. And so it was real cool to kind of see them in those intimate settings at church and then out doing their thing with their teammates. And I just felt like, man, God is moving right now in this city with me. And I feel like I'm making an impact, and my impact's not done yet. And so when I was in the meeting with the GM, she said something that kind of like irked me a little bit. But, just basically saying like, we don't get this opportunity to everybody. You're a year into the job. You're about to jump up 100 markets. Do you realize like how big this is? And to me, I'm like, yeah, but y'all reached out to me, So like at the end of the day, it's like I get the opportunities there, but I didn't apply for this, And so that kind of like, I don't know if that was a spirit kind of giving me that, saying like, you know what, I don't think I'm ready to leave yet. Like, I think I still have a lot of work to do in this city. I think God is still using me as a vessel in this city. And also, I feel like I still need to get better in the job. And so I declined the job. People thought I was crazy. People thought I had a lot of mentors telling me like, bro, I don't think that was the right decision. But I just trusted God, and I trusted that like he still had things for me to do in that city. And so the next year and a half, I grinded to get better in studio. I got a lot better because, you got a lot more reps. And then I was just able to really build a foundation with some of the guys at the church. And now to this day that, we check in, talk to each other. Some of them are now playing college ball, D1. And so like, that's been really cool to see that. And then year and a half later, the job position got open again here in Austin. It's funny how that all works out. And so at the time, though, I had 2 offers, whether it was Austin or Las Vegas. There's a news director in Las Vegas that was following me for a year and a half. So when she finally had the position open, he reached out. And I really prayed over it because at the time, from a religious standpoint, like I'm thinking Vegas or Austin, those are like those are 2 cities that don't love God at all. And so I had to like really pray, about, okay, where are you leading me? But I was able to confirm that the guy who brought me the faith from in college, he then became a youth pastor out in Austin. But with the time I was trying to decide where to go. And so to have someone that was like a foundational piece of my life to be in the city, I knew I could lean on him whenever I was trying to look for a community, trying to look for a church. Throughout that time span, I was still going to be able to have someone that I could trust for accountability and stuff like that. So I visited Vegas, didn't really like it, didn't like the atmosphere, didn't like the culture in the newsroom. It was just pretty clear that God kind of showed me, yeah, this isn't the place for you. And so I didn't even visit Austin. I just trusted it. So I think that was kind of like the journey. It's a weird journey. I haven't had to go bounce around different places, so I'm so thankful for that I just got to stay in Texas. It was definitely something I look back on, and I'm so appreciative of me not taking the position after a year into the business, but instead being patient, waiting, preparing, and then God opens up the door later on. So yeah, I'm very thankful.
Yeah, see, those stories are so important because we always see like the move somebody makes. Once the contract is actually signed and they can announce where they're going, we see it. But we always don't know the story that led up to that moment. Like you don't know what happened in the in between time from their previous job to their current job. So thanks for sharing that, because I mean I never knew that. That was something that Fitz, I don't think you even knew that.
No.
Yeah. We had never heard that before. And I know that had to be difficult to obey God. And you got the mentors in the business like, bro, you wilding right now. Like, why would you tell them no? But hey, bro, you stuck to it. You obeyed, which is really difficult. We see that in scripture a lot. A lot of people obey it, and everyone's like, you sound stupid right now.
It just didn't make, like, the spirit was just like, bro, what are you doing? Because like I said, I was just getting into the youth ministry. And I was like, bro, I can make an impact here. You know, God can really use me here. And then this opportunity comes available. I'm like, I just don't. Like, why would he give me that feeling in church and then move me? I didn't think that was the right thing. And so, yeah, it was definitely tough. But yeah, I just trusted it, dude. I just trusted it. But also I knew on the flip side, like God was going to prepare me for that position. Because I also didn't feel prepared. You know, a year in, think about it, bro. Think about y'all's first, after a year into the business, jumping up 100 markets. I'm going to get swamped, bro. I'm going to get swamped covering Texas. And the funny thing is, if I would have moved that time, they were so bad with like Tom Herman during that time. And I haven't covered a bad Texas team here since I moved here. Everyone here on campus has been great or going for a national championship. This is the first year, like with men's basketball, they've been kind of shaky, but you're still covering the guy who's leading the SEC in points per game. And so it's like every single team has been successful since I've gotten here. And I feel like God was just like, look, you don't want to be in Austin right now. There's a lot of turmoil. There's a lot of just bad things happening. Let's wait until things start to be on the up and up. And then I'll put you in that city. So yeah, I just felt like the timing of it was perfect too once I waited. And so yeah, God just has a plan. Like Jeremiah 29:11, I was reading that verse the other day. And it's just like he has us, you know? And we may not think that this is the right timing, or we may think that we missed our timing. But nah, bro, he knows exactly when and where to put us. So
yeah, absolutely. Absolutely he does. I will say real quick, I'm not disagreeing with you or rebuking you. But sometimes we can read Jeremiah 29:11 and think it's directly about us. And that's how people be like, oh, his plan is for me to prosper. Like, hold on, he wasn't talking to you.
Oh.
You know, it's for us, but it's not to us. And also that promise took 70 years to fulfill in Jeremiah. So like, yes, he does have a plan. I agree with that. He does order our steps, but don't read that verse and think that is directly to you. It was not written to you. The Bible was written for us, not to us. And so I every time I hear that verse, I'm not disagreeing with it. Yeah, but it's like, hold on now. Hold on. Just like people bring up, Habakkuk 2:2, like write the vision and make it plain. And it's like, that had nothing to do with like writing your goals down and making a vision board. Like, that's not what was going on. Like, God was talking about destroying a city and wanted Habakkuk to write it down. So he knew like, hey bro, God's going to kill y'all. Like, he wanted them like, I need you to write this vision down. Like, I'm really finna tear them up. It's like, all right, bet. And then like, you know what I mean? So like, that's, that context always kind of matters. I mean, someone had to get on me about Romans 8:28. I thought it was like, something bad happened. Okay, well then something good gonna happen, because Romans 8:28 says all things work together for the good of those who love God. And it was like, what the good means there is being like Christ. And I was like, what? I didn't know that. So there's sometimes, man, in some context, you're like, bro, I did not know that. I really thought it meant, okay, you got fired. All right, hey, Romans 8:28. But it's more so like, it doesn't mean you're going to go get a better job. It means like all things will work together for you to like be more in the image of Christ. If you love God, by the way, this don't apply to people that ain't no Christian. Stop telling people Romans 8:28 and they ain't a child of God. They don't love God. So, don't just throw those out there. That's my little theology rant for today. But just, being someone that moves to a new city, and Fitz, you can start this off. Being someone that moves to a new city, that means a couple of new things for you, right? One, you got to go find a new barber. That's always the toughest one.
Right.
Yeah, oh my gosh. I mean, I had to find a new barber just moving from my apartment to this house. That was difficult. It took me 3 different barbers to find one that can actually cut my hair for real. So, you got to find a new barber, but also most importantly, you got to find a new church. And just what is your criteria when it comes to finding a church home and really, sinking your teeth in and serving in that fellowship?
Yeah, man. For me, it has to be a pastor that when I listen to his messages, like he's teaching. You have a lot of guys that get up and they give prosperity messages like, if you do this, if you sow this seed, God will do X, Y, and Z. But like sometimes, bro, like you need to be taught, you need to be rebuked, you need to be corrected, and that has to be explained. Like I remember in the church that I'm at now, it was a situation. I guess someone like they typically in this church don't stand when the Bible is read, and I guess someone took offense to that, and so the pastor he went to scripture and he explained about the whole situation, and I just felt like in doing something like that, it was a way for him to do correction while also like teaching in that moment. And that's important. Like if you're not growing, if you're just there, you get a word and you feel good and go home, that ain't church. Like that's not what it's about. And then also having community around you where people embrace you and love on you, not just for what you do. Because I mean, we've been to places where you probably visit a church or you go to a church and you walking around and somebody looks at you and they go, "Ain't you that guy on TV?" And you're like, "Yeah," you know what I mean? But I don't want people to show love to me because of what I do. I want them to do it because of the love of Christ that is within them. And if I can't feel that, then I don't need to be there either. So I got to have some good preaching where I'm fed the word and I feel like I'm being taught, and I have to have a sense of community, whether that's a certain group that they have in it, whether that is a ministry that I know I can serve in, whatever that might be, where I feel like I'm a part of the body and I'm helping to continue to add disciples, as we go along this journey.
Cory, what you got?
Basically what Fitz was just saying when it comes to teaching, definitely need that. But also in the sense of community, in a way that I really struggled with finding a small group within the church that would fit my off days. Because, like our schedules, our off days are kind of out of whack. At the time when I first got here, it was Mondays and Tuesdays. And so that was a big criteria for me when I started visiting churches. Like, okay, this church is cool, but when is the young adult group meet? Or when is the small community groups meet? Oh, Thursdays, can't make that. So I really prioritize outside of church, when can I meet with people that are my age and that can help me grow in community? And so the church I found out here, it was literally the only church I visited that had a small group on Tuesday. So after going to the church and realizing, man, this is a dope pastor, people very friendly, and I'm able to meet with y'all outside of Sunday, that was a big priority list for me, because I know that Sunday's just not enough. And I just need to have that other day throughout the week that I'm available, that they also can meet up and talk.
Yeah, that's big time. Because I'm glad you said that. Sundays are not enough, because they're not. You got to have a small group. Real quickly, I'm going to throw it right back to you because you said that. What has been, some of those things that you've gotten from small group, some of those important lessons or whatever that you had, going to small group, because like you said, Sundays are not enough.
Yeah, it's funny because I've had 2 different experiences in both my markets. So in Midland, and God, it's so funny. Midland, it was a lot of older guys that just got married, have a kid, maybe 2, and I was youngest. And so being able to be a part of that men's group was really eye-opening to me as a 24, 25, 23-year-old, because now I'm getting a firsthand look of what a marriage that's centered in the gospel and centered in Christ looks like. There's one guy, shout out to my boy Chopper. Him and his wife really brought me in, and I was able to chill at their crib and basically just watch them live life on life, and see how they handled arguments or disagreements, not really arguments, but see how they put the kid to sleep, Jahaziel, that's his name, and how they would do a teamwork, about, okay, you got bath, you got Bible reading at night. Cool. And so I really got a firsthand look of what a marriage looks like. And that was really cool. And also, of course, those conversations where older men aren't afraid to challenge you. To be honest, I was trying to figure out myself in Midland, trying to figure out, okay, am I this type of sportscaster? Am I this type of man? What do I want to kind of put my values in? And those guys really challenged me to live a Christ-like life, because I had that platform of being on TV. And so that was really big for me. And so then you pivot to Austin, and now I'm with a bunch of guys and girls that are my age. And we're all going through like our careers together. And now I'm using those lessons that the older men taught me to now ministering to some of the guys that may be younger than me in this group. And so that's been really cool to see how God has used my time in Midland, thinking, okay, why am I the young guy here? Like, I didn't understand that at first. I didn't know if that was like the right group for me, because I'm like, y'all guys are married, y'all got kids. I'm not supposed to be here. But seeing how God used that to now to this day, oh, wow. No, he was just preparing me to then lead. And now I co-lead Bible study here. And so, yeah, I just think it's funny how all that pans out. The one lesson I learned just here in Austin is just a sense of being able to have quality time and sacrificing that time for the better good of the community and the guys in the group. There's days where, like, on my off days, I try to meet up with 2 to 3 guys in our community group, or guys that may be just on campus, and just seeing how much that is a sacrifice. I mean, I just want to chill at the crib all day, right? But sometimes you got to do things you don't want to do for the kingdom, and to continue to nurture and grow people that you're supposed to be discipling. And that's something that I feel like in Midland that I learned, sacrifice. And, you have kids, that's the biggest sacrifice. I feel like one of the biggest sacrifices you can make in this life. But seeing how they spent time away from their kids to come minister to me really meant a lot to me. And so now I'm thinking, bro, I can leave my bed to go talk to these people and to talk to my guys. Because I had guys in my life that left their families to spend 30 minutes, an hour with me. So, yeah, that was one of the biggest lessons I learned for sure.
Yeah, most definitely, bro. Thank you for sharing that. Just to add some more context and just give it a little bit more than just the surface of Sundays are not enough, because they're not. In Acts they was meeting every day. So
yeah, bro.
Yeah, they was like, hey, what we gonna do Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. So yeah, it was definitely a daily thing, and even though that's not necessarily a real possibility for us, at least understand that it's important to not just go on Sundays and then come home and be like, all right, we good. I got my points for the week, and that's just kind of the wrong way to go about it. In terms of finding a church for myself, it really had, man, the bar has changed over time, right? Like, when you go through different seasons of life, your priorities change. So like right now, the church that I currently go to, the biggest thing for me was, okay, it needs to work for me and my wife. It can't just work for just me. It has to work for the both of us. So we had to actually come up with a whole list. I don't even know if I still have it, but I'll look for it. We created an entire document of different church qualities. And then based on that, actually, I do still have it. We created this whole thing. I don't know if it'll focus up, but there you see it right there. We created what
spiritual spreadsheet.
Oh man, it was serious. Like we put a church attribute, and then me and then Elena, we put, was it important to us? And then we also had some things that we considered church red flags. So was service start time important to us? Yes, obviously, because on Sundays I got a football game to go to probably, so it doesn't matter what time church starts. How long is service? Is that important? Is the worship music good? Are the lyrics on the screen? Is the teaching super energetic? Are there black people? Like some of this stuff, you just try to like, all right, what matters, right?
Need that.
Yeah, so like all of those things happened, and then at the bottom we had just things that we thought, we listed out the most important things. So number 1 was theology. Number 2 was a sense of community. Do they have an inviting and welcoming atmosphere? And then is there a marriage-focused small group and or a marriage ministry? Also where they're just married couples in the church that we could just fellowship with, that we could go, hey, can we go break bread with these folks? And, the church that I was going to previously, they didn't have that. They did not have a marriage ministry, and that's because neither of the pastors were married. Pretty much everybody at that church was single. So we were really in a situation where it was like, hey, I'm going to go from just being one of the boys, because everybody here was pretty much single, and there was actually a lot of men in that ministry. It weren't a lot of ladies. To, all right, I'm gonna be married. I'm gonna be bringing a lady in here. If she doesn't feel connected to y'all, then this is not the church for us, right? Our appetite is changing, and so sometimes you need to pay attention, and even sometimes, always, you need to always pay attention to what you're needing to eat at that time. There was a time and place where you needed the milk from your mother, right? There was a time where you needed soft food. You could not eat hard food. But as you started to grow up and you started to develop, you needed more than just mother's milk. You needed more than just Gerber, right? It was time for you to start actually eating solid food. It was time for you to, and at some point, hey, you started eating steak. Now you got the steak and potatoes. You can do all of that. You're not on just mush. So it really is important. It's imperative to be tied into a church that can feed whatever your spiritual appetite is at that time, or whatever you actually need. So sometimes you are a single, you just got baptized spiritual babe. Sometimes you are. All right, it'd be cool to be at a church where there are, other people that are going through that journey with you. You have a young adult ministry, and, y'all are pretty much freshly saved, and they trying to make sure y'all, are just at least sticking together. Y'all not cussing, y'all not going out to party. You're not trying to live both sides. Some people try to do that whole thing of like, I went to this concert on Saturday and church the next day. And it's like, that's balance. It's like, no, that's double-mindedness. So, sometimes that's good. But as you get older and as you spiritually mature, you need to be in a place where there are spiritually mature people, especially those who are older than you, like Cory was saying with his small group, because they are where you're trying to be. And now you can actually see that, and you're like, man, now there's something that I'm going towards. So that's kind of what the criteria was for me, is like, okay, what's feeding me spiritually at that time? What is my priority right now? I'm a PK, shout out mom and dad. I grew up always in church. And I remember we had our own church in Indianapolis, and I saw this firsthand. People would leave our church because their priorities would change. So we had couples who would have children, and we didn't even have a real established children's ministry at the time. And so because we didn't have that, people said, hey, our priorities are now different now that we have kids. So we're not going to be able to fellowship here anymore, because when it was just me and my wife, it was cool. But now that we have children, we want to make sure we put our children in a good children's ministry, which is something we just did not have. So it just happens. It just happens that way. And parents, parents do that. I think my parents put us in certain, we started going to certain churches growing up because they wanted to make sure they had a good preteen and teen ministry and things like that. That was really important. One of the pieces of advice I actually got was, whenever you have kids, whatever church you go to, make sure their children's ministry is on point. Because if their children's ministry is on point, then 9 times out of 10, that means they already have a marriage ministry that's on point. So it really goes like opposite. It's not like great marriage ministry to great children's ministry. It's great children's ministry up to great marriage ministry. It just kind of feeds itself that way. So that's kind of just the priority there. So that's what it's kind of like, for us being free agents, Christian free agents, going from city to city. Now, sometimes you do go from one church in a city to another church in the city, like I did recently. And that's kind of, that's kind of tough too. I'll just throw this out there real quickly. Some pastors, and you just got to keep this in mind too. Some pastors will treat you leaving their church like a child graduating and moving on. sometimes they treat it like that. Like, okay, cool. Like you're going from, high school to college. Like, that's awesome, man. We pray that you go in and you serve at that church and you do a great thing and you keep making disciples. Other pastors treat you leaving their church like a spouse trying to get divorced. And that's always really tough. And it's not an easy thing to go through. I just want to say, please understand that that is not Christ's character. Like, don't attribute the pastor reacting that way to, okay, well, this must be who Christ is. At that moment, he's tripping. He's tripping. He has whatever motive he has behind the scenes. But you leaving, if you were really serving in that church and you really feel like you need to grow and go somewhere else, he should be happy for you. He should be applauding you to go and grow at another church instead of thinking like a spouse divorcing him. So I know that part of the whole, like, being a church free agent, so to speak, can kind of be that way. But then there's also the situations where you visit some churches and things just go left. They didn't go right at all. I know I've got a story, but Fitz, I know you've got one too. So I'm going to go ahead and throw it to you. You got to tell us about a church service you went to where you was like, I am not coming back here. There is no way I will be fellowshipping with these folks.
Man, so I believe it was my junior or senior year of college, and I played ball, so we always went to team church during fall camp. And so this particular church, the pastor would show up fairly regularly for different events that we had. By the way, I went to a Christian college, so it was like interconnected. So I went to chapel every Wednesday and all that stuff like that in the midst of it. So we get to the service and, we're walking through the door and they have, a bunch of little Debbie cakes and all that stuff for everybody. They passing all this out. Oh, okay, that's cool. All right. You wake up in the morning, you need a little breakfast. If you don't have breakfast, they got you covered. So we go in and we sit down and it's time for the worship service. And this church had, a lot of like strobe lights and stuff like that in there. And so they start playing the song and we're listening and I'm listening to the lyrics and the worship leader goes, I'm a Christian on this narrow road I ride. And I was like, is that Bon Jovi that they just remixed in the middle of this church service? Bro, I sat down. I said, no, I'm going to go ahead and finish this because we team church and we got to be here. But what? That was crazy. They had the smoke machine, the strobe lights and everything. It was crazy. I was like, I can't do this. This got my head hurting because all these lights flashing. The smoke is in here. No, I can't do this. I can't do this. I hope that they stop doing that because they scared me away for sure. I hope they didn't scare nobody else away. So they need to stop doing that.
Started off right with the Debbie cakes.
Yeah, that was awesome. I was like, cool, we got breakfast.
Yeah.
Cool. But once they got to that, I was tuned out from there. I don't.
He did
what
the remix. He
Yeah.
did a remix. Yeah.
Bro said he
that's
sat
great.
down. I can't.
He sat down during worship.
I was like, no, man, this is not right.
Oh my
Oh, bro.
gosh.
Oh my gosh, Cory, what you got, bro?
Well, when I was in Midland, when I first got there, trying to find a church, and so I asked around. So I went to this one church. It was on like a Saturday. So I pulled up to the parking lot. Of course, nobody was there, but I just wanted to see what it looks like. No, I could get there. But there was one car in the parking lot. And so when I pulled up, I walked out my car, walked around the building a little bit just to see. It was a small building. And then a guy walks outside. He's like, hey, how you doing? Like, what you here for? So I told him, like, yeah, I just moved here, whoop, trying to find a church. He said, oh, I'm the pastor of this church. I'm like, all right. Sounds good. Well, it's weird that you're the only guy here. But so we talked. Cool guy. So, a great little conversation. He told me the time to pull up tomorrow on Sunday, and I was like, okay, I'll be there. And so pull up the next day. Really cool environment. Definitely older. A lot of older congregation people. So definitely felt like I was the youngest one there. And so in the middle of service, like it wasn't even like, it was probably between like worship and the teaching, he goes, "All right, everybody, we have a special guest here today. Young man right there," like points at me. Points at me. Young man right there. His name's Cory Mose. He just became a sports anchor, right? I was like, "Yes, sir." Sports anchor at the NBC station in town. Stand up, Cory. Stand up so we can, acknowledge you. Mind you, I stand up. Everyone starts clapping. Whoa, nice to meet you. Nice to meet you. Like I said, old black church. And so then, they're like, take some time, make him feel welcome, say hi. And so they like stop service to start like, how you doing? How you doing? Nice to meet you. Nice to meet you. Oh, we're so glad to have you here. Oh, black person on the news. Oh, it's so cool. Yeah, that's when I knew. Because Fitz, I think you mentioned this earlier. Like, I just don't want to be known as the TV guy in the congregation. I just want to be known as Cory. And so after the service, I had about 3 or 4 phone calls. I guess my number got passed around. Because, you got to do like visitors. So the visitors, you write your name down, you write your number so they can contact you. I guess that number got tossed out. And so I started having people call me about news stories. So throughout that week. So yeah, that was it. Was not going back after that congregation, bro. So
They stopped service just to welcome you.
yeah.
They made you the center of attention.
Yeah. Like, bro, I don't want this at all.
Yeah.
So
That's crazy. Then the phone calls is what got me to, yeah, brother, we glad you came, but I got this story that I want.
bro, yes. That's
You
exactly
find it in your heart. It's like, come on, man.
really appreciate it becoming my service. But man, now that I know you here in town, like I've been having this thing happening to me for a couple weeks. I'm like, all right, here we go. That one I needed first week here. So yeah, never went back.
I'm sure they called you, didn't they? I mean, they didn't see you again, so
Yeah.
I feel like they would have called.
I stopped answering. So yeah, anytime I saw, because at that time, those were only 432. That's the area code out there. Those are the only numbers I knew that had my number. Because then I also had a work phone. So any work phone I had, I started using that mug. I was like, all right, bet. Like, here's my number. You call this phone. And so anybody that called my personal on 432, I'm like, church people, say less. So yeah, that's how it all kind of went down.
Oh my gosh, bro. Yeah. See, a lot of churches now don't even have first-time visitors stand up no more.
Yeah.
They don't even, they don't have them stand up. They don't have them raise their hand, nothing, because they don't want people to feel uncomfortable. So I remember back in the day, they used to have first-time visitors stand up, and depending on how the size of the church was, sometimes you had to introduce yourself. But nowadays, they just be like, hey, man, we want to welcome all our first-time visitors. We don't even know if there's any in the room. Mm-hmm. They're like, hey, welcome all the first-time visitors, man. We so glad y'all here. Woo-woo-woo, whatever. Hey, after service, come to this table over there. And then be like, oh, yeah, by the way, I'm a first-time visitor, and we'll give you a gift, something like that. But, yeah, and I think it's for that reason, right? Like, you scaring people off when you do that. Like,
We here for the Lord, bro.
Yeah. Why'd you make me the center of attention? I don't know, y'all. That's crazy. So, all right. So, this is mine real quick. And I've got my wallet because it's important to the story. So, I remember before I found my previous church here in Tampa, I was just looking for a church. I was like, I need to find a church, right? I'm looking for community. Where there was a young brother from Atlanta, pastor from Atlanta, that had just planted a church here in Tampa. And I was like, oh, he's from Atlanta? Like, oh, let's go. Like, let me link up with him. I'm thinking that's gonna be dope. He was, early to mid 30s, whatever. And he actually, I saw a clip of him preaching online where he brought up the Falcons. I'm like, oh yeah, I'm going to his church. I just felt like that's got to be it. You know what I'm saying? What you bringing up the Falcons for? So I'm thinking, okay, cool. So mind you, just planted a church. This is this man's first ever service, period. Church just opened his doors, okay? I pull up to the, the high school. They ain't got their own building yet. Pull up to the high school, walk in. I see him. I see his wife. His wife ain't talking to nobody. Ma'am, you the first lady. Yeah. You got to say something. You know what I mean? You are the woman of God in this place. Like, you got to say something. She ain't talking to nobody. Okay, cool. Now, mind you, it's y'all gonna understand this. Some of the people watching not gonna understand. So the pastor from Atlanta, he was bunny hopping. That's all I'm gonna say. Wife is not talking to anybody. If you know, you know. His wife is not talking to anyone. Okay, well, the bunny's not speaking. So that's
Not referring to her.
the bunny's not speaking. So like, what's going on, man? What's up with that? How do you do that in Atlanta? You
No,
from
that's you're
from the city. So
what's the
anyway,
congregation like?
Oh, great question. There was 9 of us there. 5 of us were related to him. So, first ever service, there's 9 people there. 5 of the people were related to him. He had his cousin in there. He had his aunt in there, whatever. So, okay, cool. There's 9 of us. Now, so he starts preaching, and he wanted everybody, because naturally we kind of tend to spread out, social anxieties. He had everybody come to the very front row. He said, everybody, ain't only 9 of y'all in here. Everybody front row. So now we all in the front row, this high school auditorium, and he's preaching to us. So he gets to some part of his message, and he starts talking about himself. This dude just moved here. I live on the same street as some of the Buccaneers players, and I ain't no football player. I ain't no rap singer. I said, bro, you 32 talking about rap singer. That's what 70-year-old men say. I ain't no rap singer. I just love God. This man, I'm not going to pull out my real credit card. I'll pull out my, it's a Kroger card.
Shout out
This
Kroger.
man pulls out a platinum credit card. You think I'm lying? He pulls out a platinum credit card and he goes, this is the key to God's favor.
Hey, man.
No, bro. No,
What?
bro.
He said, just like a hotel key, you got to put it to the door to unlock it. You got to put this in the bucket to unlock God's favor. I say, I ain't coming back. You just saying stuff, man. He talking about, don't pay me no tithe. Don't pay me no tithe. If this ain't your home church. I said, ain't nobody home church. It's our first service. Don't pay no tithe here. But if you need to sow an offering, you need to sow an offering into the church. So I actually don't remember if I gave him anything. I don't. I might have given him $10 because it was like, hey, bro, you from Atlanta, you know what I'm saying?
Respect.
I hope you you can maybe do a little something with this, whatever, whoop-de-woo. But it wasn't really for you. It was just more for like just being a cheerful giver. Like, I'm gonna give you something. But yeah, I didn't go back. That was the last time I went there. And then I remember when my wife and I were looking for a church, we visited this one church, and the pastor literally just got up there and just like theologically lied and thought we didn't know he was lying. He was talking about how Samuel's mother, like you see like baby dedication in the Bible, Samuel's mother dedicated him to the Lord. He said that Samuel was the tithe. And it was Mother's Day, by the way. It's Mother's Day. And now he's trying to tell the mothers to tithe their children. Give your children to the Lord. I said, oh, you talking about baby dedications. He said, nah. Samuel was the tithe. No, he was not. Nobody tithed their child. Like, that is a lie. Like, nobody ever tithed their child. So I remember we told our premarital counselors about it, and they was like, he probably said that because offering was low for the last month.
Nah.
So, yeah, man.
How was the service before that moment? I'm interested.
It was okay. Like, It wasn't like it was nothing bad happened, like nothing crazy. But it was like he got to the end, and I'm just like, I'm kind of waiting. I'm like, I want to see how because I really am interested how churches come to the topic of giving. It's very important to get that right. Churches that tell you going to hell because you didn't tithe, stop going there. Just stop. Churches that tell you that you're robbing God if you just sit there, and they're trying to put pressure on you, actually is not even, like, that's not even accordance to the Bible. Literally in 2 Corinthians chapter 9, it tells you, Paul is talking to the church in Corinth, and he's telling them you should not be giving under compulsion. So if you're giving under compulsion, as in somebody's putting pressure on you to do it, then that's not even right. You shouldn't have to give because someone put pressure on you. You need to do it cheerfully because you want to. And you're really just saying, hey, I trust God, with my money in the spiritual realm, but in the earthly realm, you're sowing into that ministry, right? If there's a restaurant that you enjoy going to, well, okay, keep going so they can stay open. There's some stores that I like. Hey, I don't want this store to close. I want this store to remain open. So I'm going to give, I'm going to keep going here and giving them money because I don't want to pull up and they say, oh, we closed down because you didn't sow into that place. So, Yeah, so I mean, I understand that, but don't tell me somebody tithed their child. That's just not true.
That's insane.
So yeah, sometimes, man.
Shout out to all the churches out there, man.
Yeah, shout out to all the churches, but make sure you get your theology right.
Yeah.
I wish Paul could write us a letter. I'm sure he would have a lot of
he'll go
have a lot of
crazy.
things to say. I don't know if y'all have ever read Galatians, but he really goes off on them for like the first 3 chapters. Like, this man literally starts Galatians chapter 1, and he was like, let me go to it right now. He starts Galatians chapter 1. He was like, Paul, an apostle, sent not from men nor by man, but by Jesus Christ and God the Father, who raised him from the dead, and all the brothers and sisters with me. And so he really's like, hey, grace be upon y'all, shout out to God, shout out to our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. And then after saying that, he goes, I am astonished. That's the first 3 words. I am astonished that you are so quickly deserting the one who called you to live in the grace of Christ and are turning to a different gospel. That's the first sentence.
Said, ain't no way.
He said,
Ain't
hey,
no
man,
way. What I'm
firstly,
seeing is what I'm seeing.
Firstly, shout out.
Who's the head of my life?
Yeah, he's at first giving honor to God who's the head of my life. Thank you for giving us your son, Jesus. Hey, man, y'all tripping, bro. I ain't gonna lie. I am astonished. Which is, that's low-key how Stephen A. be talking. He be saying, LeBron is a dear, dear friend of mine. And, well, they're not friends, actually. He said that multiple times now. He's LeBron, I've covered him for a long time. I've been covering the NBA for a long time. And, I started as a sports columnist with the Philadelphia Inquirer before coming here to ESPN, and First Take has been #1 for the last 13 years. But nobody has ever come in my face like LeBron did. Pause. Like, oh my gosh. That's literally the Stephen A. formula. Like, he took that from Paul. He just being real calm and then coming out of nowhere. LeBron James got in my face at a game. I was sitting courtside and he got in my face.
Can I get y'all's opinion on that? I know we're kind of over.
Yeah, go ahead.
We're kind of over
ahead,
time.
Bro. Go ahead.
But what is y'all's opinion on that? Like, cause I've had conversations with the homies. I see both sides, But I just want to see y'all's opinion.
Hey,
Fitz, you got it.
Listen, we talked about this on the pod this week. I was like, not everybody play by their kids, man. Like you can't say certain stuff. You can't touch certain bases. I get the sense of the fact that he is a professional athlete, and I get that. The thing that I probably would have done different if I was LeBron is I'd have went up to him and I'd have just been like, hey, man, good to see you. Let me holler at you after the game. Don't go nowhere. That's probably the only thing different I would have did. But again, you can't tell people how to react about their children, because I have seen parents have the terriblest, baddest, just baby kid children.
Yeah.
And then they might be wrong, but you can't tell them because they just don't go off. So I get it, man. That's a parent, and the as a father stuff and all that he said. You can't. You said it publicly. You can't be mad at him if he gonna pull up on you publicly. So
I'm gonna just say, I understand what LeBron was doing because, again, he is a father. However, that is the conversation to have, not during a timeout. That wasn't even after the game.
Yeah,
it was in the middle of a game.
It's like the third quarter.
Yeah, like it's what? There's a game going on, bro. Like that was not the time to do it. And Stephen A. made the point that LeBron understands his celebrity. LeBron knows that. He knows cameras are probably on him at all times whenever he's out in public, especially when he's on the basketball court. So LeBron had to have known that there was going to be at least a camera on him when he went up to Stephen A. Had to have known that. So I think for him to do that in that moment, I would not put it past LeBron. Like, LeBron's not dumb. He understands his celebrity. He did that, to put it out there. Now, I understand that I do get public offense deserves public apology. However, I don't think what Stephen A. had to say was necessarily offensive. He was saying your son's not NBA ready. He said your son's not NBA ready, and he did call out LeBron as a father, not basketball. He said, LeBron, I'm talking to you as a father to another father. I want you to stop this, and I want you to, do the right thing and stop putting your son on the NBA bench. He needs to be in the G League. Okay, like I understand that, and I understand everybody does not always like what Stephen A has to say. But in those instances, a lot of times they would call him. You know, Kobe used to call Stephen A on the phone. Like he would hear something that Stephen A said, he would call him just straight up. I think Carmelo did the same thing and was like, "We need to talk." So at least they would do it in that way, and kind of handle it as men. But yeah, I personally do not agree with how LeBron handled it. I do understand handling it because you are somebody's dad, like you're Bronny's dad, but I don't think you should have done it during no timeout. I think what Fitz said was perfect. Like, hey, come holler at me after the game. They could have spoken in the tunnel and it would have been perfectly fine. Wouldn't have been no cameras, wouldn't have been nothing.
Exactly.
And it wouldn't have been a story. It would have never been a story.
Yep.
I felt like there could have been a situation where, you know, you talked about Bronny needing to be in the G League. Yes, you're right. Then my point would be, okay, let me prove to everybody that I was right by talking about Bronny in the G League in a good light. You know, 'cause he has been hooping. Well, I don't know if people have been paying attention, but he's been hooping every time he's played. And so it's like, as journalists, it's like, all right, bet. Like, I talked about the kid. He needs to be in the G League. Now he's here. Let me at least do like a 15, 20-second, you know, here you go. Hey, Bronny hooped last night, dropped 25. He's averaging 25 of the last 6-7 games. He's been doing his thing. You know, if he's such a polarizing figure now, well, let's talk about him when he's doing well as well. So I think that's from a sports journalist perspective, like that's where Stephen A kind of fell flat on because he has that platform, because he has that voice. It's like you can still talk about Bronny because he's playing well now. You don't have to keep that quiet. So I just see both sides of it. And, you know, I just think it's an interesting situation because now you have the tops of the tops in two different, you know, fields. And it was just really weird to just see them go at it like that in a public space when I feel like a lot of those conversations we usually hear about from behind closed doors. But
yeah. So and there are three things that I always stick to when it comes to criticizing a player. Number one, I never talk about their family.
Mm-hmm.
That's number one.
yeah, bro.
You might
But
get stolen on, boy.
that water though is muddied when you're talking about LeBron James's son, right? So it's like I am talking about somebody's family, even though I'm critiquing them. So it's not like I'm not, you know what I'm saying? Like that man, the water gets a little bit muddy there. But number one, I do not talk about that person's family. Number two, I don't attack that person's character if I have not spent personal time with them. Just being in a press conference with them before and after games, you know, that I ain't spent no time with you. I can't talk about your character. And then number three, I never try to bridge a personal tragedy to poor play. I don't always say, oh, it's because his dad died. Like, whoa, like, no, it's not, you know, oh, it's because his wife was on IG tripping to the, nah, I never, ever, ever, ever do that. Those are three things I never, ever do when criticizing a player. You just got to keep it in between the sidelines, right? Keep it in between the lines. But again, back to number one, if you're criticizing Bronny, you are talking about somebody's family. So it's like, dang, like how do you do that? Like that, man, that really muddies the water. But to Cory's point, okay, well then balance it out with the positive. Like talk about what he's doing in the G League. When have you guys ever talked about a 55th overall pick? Ever like this? You don't. So you do have to kind of make an exception here. Because when the heck are y'all talking about the G League? You know,
Never.
We don't sit here and talk about the G League.
Mac McClung.
We only bring him up in the dunk contest.
Exactly.
You know, no one ever is talking about that, man, except for the dunk contest. Man comes up from the G League, you know, and then disappears again after the dunk contest. So like y'all don't cover what he's doing on a game-to-game basis. But with Bronny, okay, it's LeBron's son. So if you're going to talk about the bad, then I guess you do have to balance it out with the good. Not just to make LeBron happy, but just to make your coverage more balanced.
Yeah, it's got to be a balance. It's got to be a sense of that. And Stephen A. being somebody that kind of controls the needle, especially with the way First Take goes, he could have easily said like, hey, y'all, let's have a 15-second bump or a last take or something mentioning what Bronny did, get in and out of that and all that stuff. Now, I get it, like, and that's a whole nother conversation for another day about the bottom line and if that will draw in ratings and all that stuff. And I know he understands that perspective, but you still got to be balanced because if you one way, then now they calling you a muckraker, a yellow journalist, all this other stuff like that. Like you lean in a certain way, so you got to have balance.
If you can bring in Kai Cenat to do a MJ versus LeBron
Hey,
segment.
I
You
watched
could
that
talk
live
about
and I
Bronny
was
for
like, this is not for me. This is not my demographic. This is for them curing. This is not for me.
like, what are we doing? What are we doing?
Stephen A. understands that though. He understands that. That's what he told me in person. He told me to my face. He was like, a lot of people that watch us live are older. He said, but really, our views on YouTube are way higher than our views live on ESPN. And guess who's on YouTube? Young folks.
Mm-hmm.
So guess who watched that debate on YouTube? Young folks. Millions of them. And that brought in money for First Take. Big picture.
What an industry we're in.
Chestnut
man.
checkers.
What an industry we're in.
Chestnut checkers, man. Chestnut checkers. All right, y'all. That's it. We out of time for today. It's been a long conversation anyway.
Yeah.
If you stuck on this long, you already know what you got to do. You got to go ahead and subscribe, become a bench warmer. Go ahead and lock in with us. That's all you got to do. Hit that subscribe button or that follow button on Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Spotify, wherever you are listening or watching. We thank you for listening or watching today. Again, go ahead, hit that subscribe button and share, because one share can change a life. Last episode, I read a review that we got from a friend of mine, because truly you guys are sharing, and those shares are really changing people's lives. So that's not just something we say, that's something that actually is real. People's lives have been changed because they've been listening, they've been tuning in, and the Holy Spirit is watering the seeds that we have been planting here on Game Day Grace. So we appreciate y'all, Fitz. We appreciate you, my guy, coming in, sharing your perspective as well. Everybody be easy and be blessed, and we will see you next Wednesday.